Today, I'm going to share a truly experience that happened to me when I was around 15 years old. About a year and a half ago, I was hanging out with three mates in a fairly small town in Australia. We had a day. We were on our way back to my friend's house, and there's a big forest next to the path leading to his place. As we were walking past, we heard this laughing sound, like a little girl. We initially joked it was just a bird. You know how birds can sometimes make creepy noises, lol. But this really sounded like a little girl laughing. My other two mates just shrugged it off, but I got really curious. I don't even know why. I just had this feeling. The side of the path we were on was really thick with bushes. You couldn't see anything inside at all. But to the left, there was the beginning of a golf course where it cleared up a bit, and you could see into the edge of the forest. I walked over to the clearer area, and the laughing stopped. But then I started to hear something running through the bush. I thought it must have been a fox or something. My friends were still on the path, telling me to hurry up. And then I just started to freak out because I don't even know how to explain it. It was like a plain white figure standing there behind a tree. I could see like half of it. I ran back to my friends and told them what I saw, and they just laughed it off, thinking I was messing with them. But I was literally shaking, and they realized I was being serious. So, they went back over with me, forcing me to point out what I saw. But it wasn't there anymore. They thought I was seeing things, and I was just freaking out, trying to convince them I wasn't crazy. But then I spotted it again, more to the left of where I originally saw it. I told them, and they saw it as well. We all started freaking out. One of my friends just completely ran back to the path and backed away really far. Me and my other friend kind of just backed up and got our phones out to try and get a video or photo of it. My friend started recording, but you just couldn't see it in the camera at all. It wasn't there, nothing. We could only see it with our own eyes. Mind you, my friend who ran was trying to get us to leave, and me and my friend who was recording were freaking out over it, trying to understand what was going on because it wasn't showing up on either of our cameras at all. We ended up just leaving because we didn't know what else to do. We just went back to his house and agreed we wouldn't tell anyone because we would either be flamed for lying or just be considered crazy. Around the age of 12 or 13, I used to love staying up late, playing on my phone hidden under my pillow. Whenever I heard my dad coming to check on me, I'd quickly pretend to be asleep and stash my phone beneath the pillows. My dad had this usual trick where he'd come into the room and then pretend to leave, just to see if I was really asleep. One night, I heard someone approaching my room, so I did what I always did, pretended to be asleep and hid my phone. After I heard the footsteps move away, I cautiously sat up. To my shock, there was a man standing by my bed. He was about 6 feet tall, had a muscular build, and was wearing a baseball cap. The room was dark, so I couldn't see his face clearly, but my dad is also around that height, has a similar build, and often wears baseball caps. Afraid of being grounded, I quickly made up an excuse. I said,
Sorry, Dad, my friend is going through a tough time, and I just wanted to make sure she was okay.
When I said this, the person didn't respond at all. I then hugged him and said,
Good night.
The man still didn't say anything, not even a whisper. Confused and starting to get scared, I asked,
Dad, are you okay?
In response, I got this strange, low sound, like a growl. Terrified, I just turned my back and closed my eyes. The next morning, I woke up in a terrible mood with my dad. I thought he had taken a joke way too far and had really scared me. When my dad asked about it, I told him what happened. He looked genuinely concerned. He then informed me that he had been working overnight and hadn't returned home until that morning. He said the only other person in the house at that time was my grandma. However, my grandma was only about 5 feet tall, very frail, and couldn't even stand up straight at that time. The person I saw was 6 feet tall and muscular. My family dismissed it as me watching too many horror movies. But the feeling that night was so real. Now, when I think back, I sometimes wonder if it could have been a shadow person. But if it was, how was I able to hug them? And if it was a real person, how did they get into the house silently, and why didn't they steal anything? Alright, Horror Story Channel fans. Today, I'm going to tell you a true story that happened to me, an experience that still sends shivers down my spine just thinking about it. This happened last summer when I went to Thailand with my parents. It was supposed to be a fun trip, but it completely changed because of one hotel we stayed in. We were in Chiang Mai and checked into a large hotel that looked like it had seen better days. From the outside, it was fine, quite big, but walking inside felt off. The lobby was narrow and long, with the reception at the very end. It was filled with all sorts of old, dusty Chinese-style decorations, shiny gold dragon sculptures, and paintings and furniture that looked like they belonged in a museum storage. The whole space had a weird vibe, like time had stopped there. That night, my parents went out, and I stayed alone in the hotel, in my own separate room. I remember walking down the hallway of one of the higher floors where my room was after getting a snack from the local 7-Eleven. I don't quite remember which floor, but it was very high, 8th or 9th. The lights didn't work, giving the long hallway a creepy vibe. The only lights that did work were the fire escape lights, those green ones for safety measures. What also didn't help was the fact that the hallway looked like one of a ship, white walls with dark blue doors and a window all the way at the end of the hallway. I was walking alone in that dark, silent corridor, every step carefully placed. My room was at the very end of the hallway. Just as I was getting close to my door, that spine-chilling feeling hit me. It felt like someone was staring at me, following me closely. I had never felt anything like it before. My stomach suddenly dropped, and I didn't dare to look back. My heart was pounding, adrenaline surged, I was terrified. I practically fled into my room, quickly closed the door, locked it, and even pushed a chair against it to block it. I was completely on edge. A bit about the room: it was small, old, and worn out, and the style was bizarrely mixed, like communism and Chinese details were awkwardly mashed together. There were 2 separate beds. Next to my bed was a small nightstand with an old wired phone. I slept on the left bed, right next to that phone. That night, I lay in bed, tossing and turning, and finally drifted off to sleep. Then, around 1 a.m., I was woken up by a very weird noise coming from the hallway. It sounded like someone taking heavy steps, dragging a heavy object slowly across the floor, making a strange and grating crickery sound, but high-pitched. It went on for a while, and I was scared to death, hiding under the covers until it stopped. After a while, I calmed down but desperately needed to use the toilet. After going back to bed, curiosity and fear drove me to take a quick peek through the peephole in the door. Guess what I saw? There was a chair in the hallway. An ordinary chair, just standing there in front of an empty room's door, and it was facing directly towards my door. My scalp tingled instantly. I pulled back immediately and dove back under the covers. Believe it or not, after all that, I somehow managed to fall asleep again. But not for long. Remember that wired phone on my nightstand? Yeah, it went off in the middle of the night, guessing around 3 to 4 a.m. For some reason, the phone kept flickering red with a small light, and the sound wasn't like a normal phone ringing, more like a mix of an alarm and a phone call. It kept going, and I tried to ignore it, but eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. With a trembling hand, I reached out and picked it up. I whispered,
Hello?
There was no answer on the other end, only a heavy, strained breathing, a breathing sound that didn't seem human at all. I slammed the receiver back down and froze in bed. But just a few minutes later, the phone rang again. Oh my God, that's when I truly started to freak out. With the last bit of sanity I had left, I picked it up again, hoping it would stop, but again, nothing but that terrifying breathing. In despair, I left the receiver off the hook next to the phone, but that didn't work either because after a while, it rang again. It was still ringing. That's when I snapped. I lunged out of bed, flipped on the room light, rushed to the phone, and grabbed the cord connecting it to the wall. I pulled with all my might, hard enough for the cable to snap. But it kept ringing. Ring, ring. How? IT wasn't connected to anything. I had completely lost it. My mind went blank, and the only thought was to get rid of this thing. I grabbed the still ringing phone and hurled it out the door into the hallway. It landed right next to that damn chair. Wait, that chair had moved. It was now facing away from my door. The phone kept ringing out in the hallway, and I couldn't sleep for the rest of the night, finally drifting off around 5 a.m. The next morning, when I finally mustered up the courage to cautiously open the door, the hallway was empty. The chair and the phone were both gone. Later, I told my dad about the strange things that happened, and he said he slept soundly and didn't hear a thing. I asked him about a wired phone in their room, and after my description, he thought it was strange because their room didn't even have one. Thank goodness, we checked out that same day and moved to another normal hotel nearby. I know this story might sound unbelievable, like something I made up, but trust me. What happened that night truly haunted me for weeks afterward. I swear every moment I experienced was real, and that feeling of terror. I wouldn't wish that on anyone.